Hey kids, are you ready? We're going to take an exciting trip. We're going to start at Davis and we are driving all the way up to the summit. Are you all strapped in, ready to go?
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? We haven't even started the car.
Hey, Evan and Leah, I think you have the wrong idea. We're not going to try to take Interstate 80 and get up to the summit the fastest way. We're going to take the slow route. We're going to investigate other ways we can travel up to the summit. We're going to look at the history of going over the summit from the indigenous people all the way up to when Interstate 80 was constructed. We're taking the slow route, and hopefully we'll have a lot of fun looking at other things. Oh, well, say hi to your mom and dad. Maybe next time you'll come along and we'll go for an adventure. Bye. As you creep along Interstate 80, heading to or from Lake Tahoe, I doubt that you ever have contemplated the history or the challenges of building pathways across the Sierra Nevada mountains. Creating pathways to cross over the Sierra Nevada mountains was a monumental task. To begin the tale, we must first understand the geology of California. The analogy would be to think of California as a jigsaw puzzle of moving parts. While continental drift theory had been proposed as early as the 16th century, in 1915, German geologist Alfred Wegener gave proof that our continents actually did drift. Each epoch of geologic time has left an imprint on the Sierra Nevada mountains. With fault lines crisscrossing California, we are still moving, not just slipping north or south, but up and down. Below the pounding waves, tectonic plates creep, moving from west to east. The Farallon plate is a subduction plate. It dives under the North American plate, while the North American plate moves westward. Moving east, the Farallon plate dragged its ocean seabed into a pressure cooker. Mountains of organic matter, high in calcium, moved inland, submerged under the North American plate. Under extreme pressure and heat, the massive amounts of organic matter was cooked, compressed into a metamorphic rock, limestone. Eventually, the mountains of limestone were uplifted to the surface. The 250 million year old limestone formation, as you will see later, will help make the age of automobile travel through the Sierra Mountains possible. Deep in the Earth's crust, a magma chamber is created. The chamber becomes a reservoir of igneous molten rock. The pressure within the chamber is higher than the atmospheric pressure. The magma moves upwards towards the surface, fracturing rocks as the magma moves to the surface. As the magma reaches the surface, it becomes a volcanic eruption. Notice in the diagram, our current Sierra Nevada mountain range is built on an ancestral mountain range. Lava flows can travel great distances. Repeated eruptions create mountains of lava known as basalt rock. Granite rock is the most iconic rock formation of the Sierra. The difference between basalt and granite is that granite does not erupt and flow onto the Earth's surface. Granite remains encapsulated. Basalt is fine-grained, gray in color. Because of basalt's high iron content, it will attract a magnet. Granite is light-colored and in part composed of quartz, feldspar, and mica. Granite rock is created in massive batholiths deep within the Earth's crust. Two factors help move granite to the surface. Erosion removes the top layer of Earth, reducing top pressure over the batholith. In addition, the shifting plates create an upward movement, pushing the granite batholiths towards the surface. Under immense pressure, the shifting plates created mountains and valleys. The Sierra Nevada mountain ridge runs 400 miles long. It is a giant granite batholith which poked its head into the open air. It did not rise like an elevator straight up. Instead, it rose in the form of a wedge, with the steep side facing east. The last glacial maximum covered Canada and Alaska. Ice fields rose in places up to 2 miles high. Ocean's level fell over 400 feet. The Sierra Nevada's peaks and valleys had filled with glaciers. The lowering of the oceans opened up a land bridge between Asia and North America. Geologists named the bridge Beringia. Around 20,000 years ago, nomadic Asian hunters sailed in small crafts. They left Asia, heading east, traveling island to island. While the mountains of ice blocked their entry into Alaska's interior, from the narrow ice-free coastline, they could find bountiful resources. For those who sailed further south, reaching the now Columbia River, the first people to America found the glacial ice sheets giving way. The bountiful of the interior was now open to them. About the same time, 20,000 years ago, climate change brought warmer weather. This caused the massive glacial ice sheets to retreat. In the Sierra Nevada, the melting ice sent rushing rivers and streams, rushing west, cutting ever deeper valleys. To cross the Sierra Mountains, our first Americans created walking paths, which would crisscross the Sierra Nevada. Around 4,000 years ago, one of the earliest residents of Donner's Summit arrived. The Martis people left petroglyphs, bedrock mortars, and pestles. When the weather became too cold at the summit, the Martis migrated down the eastern side of the Sierra. Their tools and weapons were made from basalt rock. When compared to obsidian, basalt was not the best rock for making tools or weapons. Our indigenous people had no use for gold, but obsidian, volcanic glass, meant a successful hunt and food for their family. The second people were the Northern Paiute. They were a semi-nomadic people, hunter-gatherers, who inhabited eastern California, western Nevada, and southeastern Oregon. For 8,000 years, the Washoe people inhabited the crest and the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevada. They too needed trails around Lake Tahoe and into Nevada. Their trails would also connect with the indigenous tribes on the western slopes of the Sierra Nevada. Look closely at President Abraham Lincoln's stovepipe hat. It looks as if this hat was made out of felt made from wool. That was not the case. It was made from beaver pelts. In London, hats made from beaver pelts were in high demand. London's hatters were paying a premium for beaver pelts. Entered the Hudson Bay Company. It was established in 1670 and was given a monopoly over the vast territory that drained into the Hudson Bay. Their trappers fed the needs of the London hatters. As the numbers of beavers diminished, trappers moved west. Besides the London trade, there was great profit to be made trading furs in China for silk, spices, porcelain, and even rice. In 1812, Russia established Fort Ross in Alta California. They had two important reasons. The milder climate would allow Fort Ross to provide food for Russia's colonies in Alaska. A second reason was fur trapping. John Jacob Astor is a story of an impoverished 15-year-old German immigrant who amassed a fortune in the fur trade. He established the first American colony at the mouth of the Columbia River, Fort Astor. The location was chosen for its access to beavers. With the ever-growing demand for pelts, the Hudson Bay Company established a trading post in what is today Vancouver, British Columbia. Trappers also expanded their search for furs in the Oregon Territory as well as in Mexican Territory, Alta California. Tragically, the trappers brought European diseases, which the indigenous population had no defense. While the first people might claim justly that this was their land, Europeans and the Americans had other ideas. The land in orange marked Mexico. Mexico felt this was their land. Russia made their claim to Alta California by building Fort Ross, while the British and Americans had opposing claims in the area marked in brown. The United States and Britain had fought two wars, 1776, the Revolutionary War, and the War of 1812. The British finally came to the conclusion that the United States was becoming too powerful. It was better to be friends than enemies, so a treaty was signed in 1818. The treaty remained in effect until 1846. Under the treaty, both American and British citizens were welcome to settle in the Oregon Territory. In 1846, the boundary was set at the 49th parallel. The Mexican-American War ended with Mexico ceding not only California, but also large swaths of western lands. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson added his signature to a document purchasing from France 828,000 square miles of land. The Louisiana purchase would almost double the size of the United States. President Jefferson pondered, was it now possible to find the Northwest Passage, which would connect the East Coast to the West Coast? This was the task he asked Lewis and Clark to explore. The 2-year expedition established that there was not an ocean passage, but a land path to the Pacific Ocean. With the knowledge that a path was possible, by 1811 fur trappers had established a more direct walking trail to Oregon. The trappers' path expanded. Soon bridges, cutoffs, and ferries were established. Thousands of wagon trains headed west. Between 1846 and 1869, an estimated 400,000 migrants entered Oregon. The trail to California had to wait, blocked by the massive Sierra Mountains and a Mexican government that shuddered at the thought it would be overrun by Americans. In 1824, Jedediah Smith, a seasoned fur trapper with the help from the Crow Indians, discovered the South Pass through the Rocky Mountains. The pass would facilitate wagon travel over the Oregon Trail. Always seeking new fur hunting grounds, 2 years later found Jedediah Smith and his companions becoming the first United States citizens to cross into Mexican territory in what is today California. His passage was through the Mojave Desert. He would exit Alta California by hiking over the Sierra Nevada mountains. The following year, 1828, he was back in California. This time, he and his companions hiked from Southern California north into the Oregon Territory. Trapper Joseph R. Walker earned a footnote in California history. He and Benjamin Bonneville, along with a party of mountain men, established a path over the rugged granite Sierra Nevada summit. The trail began in Missouri, where he joined the Oregon Trail. Walker split from the Oregon Trail and instead followed the Humboldt River, then switching to the West Fork of the Carson River. Once on the summit, they found the headwaters of the Stanislaus River, which they followed down into the San Joaquin Valley. Upon the advice from an indigenous tribesman, they returned east over the Sierra by taking a pass now named after him, the Walker Pass. Two morally challenged individuals that changed California history, Don Juan Marsh and Don Juan Sutter. Let us start with John Marsh. He was a grifter from Massachusetts. Because of time, we need to skip ahead to his last occupations, where we find Marsh in Santa Fe. He was employed by John Astor's American Fur Company. In 1837, he left Santa Fe for San Diego, seeking Mexican residency. He embellished his resume, noting that he was a medical doctor. Well, sort of. He studied medicine under a real doctor, but never finished his studies. To own land in Mexico, he had to become a Mexican citizen and a Roman Catholic. Needing doctors, the authorities accepted Marsh as a doctor and a citizen. His medical practice was lucrative. He parlayed his money into buying a large ranchero in what is today Brentwood. Marsh believed the Mexican court system was corrupt, and he feared one day they might confiscate his ranchero. Marsh worried more about France's intentions. France lost the Louisiana Territory in 1803, and in the following year lost Haiti. Within Mexico, there were communities of French expats. The French looked down on their Mexican neighbors. In Veracruz, Mexico, a French pastry chef, Monsieur Remontel, complained that Mexicans officers looted his pastry shop. Our pastry chef turned to the French government for help. France demanded that Mexico pay compensation. The Mexican government refused. Over the trashed pastry shop, the French Navy seized the Mexican port of Veracruz. 200 Mexican soldiers died. I kid you not, the war was called the Pastry War of 1838-1839. It was the first of two wars over Mexican debt between Mexico and France. Mexico lost the war and was ordered to pay 600,000 pesos in sterling silver, a sum of money Mexico could not repay. Marsh feared that the French now had reason to take over the vast Mexican territory. The solution, Marsh believed, was to make sure that Alta California would become American. To encourage Americans to immigrate into California, Marsh began a letter-writing campaign. His letters were picked up by local newspapers. Marsh boasted that California had the perfect weather, great soil, cheap land, and there were wagon paths over the Sierra. The exploits of trappers Joseph Walker and Jedediah Smith were well publicized. John C. Fremont was aided by Kit Carson, also crossed the Sierra Nevada. All proved there were paths over the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Stevens Townsend Murphy party consisted of 10 families, numbering 50 individuals, traveling in 11 wagons. John Townsend was a licensed doctor, a first upon arriving in California. On May 6, 1844, they left Council Bluff, Iowa for Alta California. For the first leg, they accompanied 40 wagons heading to Oregon. Upon reaching the Humboldt Sink, a decision had to be made on the next direction to take. It was here they met an Indian who, using a stick and sand, drew the route to the Truckee River. The helpful Indian was not an obscure Paiute. He was Chief Winnemucca. He was also known by the Paiute as Chief Truckee. The party followed Chief Winnemucca's directions. After locating the Truckee River, they followed the Truckee River upstream to the Sierra summit. It was now November. Snow was beginning to hamper their westward travel. They became the first European Americans to dip their toes into Lake Tahoe. At the summit, they encountered massive granite monuments. To cross over the massive granite peaks, they unhitched their oxen, used pulleys to physically haul the wagons over the granite outcroppings. Heavy snow set in. A temporary cabin was built. It would be used 2 years later by the ill-fated Donner Party. There were moments of uncertainty as to whether they would survive. On December 4th, 1844, all 52 members survived as they reached Fort Sutter. Yes, all 52. Along the long trail, there were 2 births. John Sutter was a grifter. In Bern, Switzerland, he married a wealthy widow's daughter. He then bankrupted his family, and as a debtor, he faced arrest and prison. He abandoned his wife and 5 children and escaped Switzerland. He bounced around North America, finally landing in Hawaii. His next port would be Monterey, the capital of Alta California. In Monterey, he convinced the governor of Alta California that if he were granted a ranchero, he would help stop American immigrants from entering into Alta California. Convinced that this Swiss immigrant would indeed stop Americans from trespassing into Alta California, the governor granted Sutter about 50,000 acres. The land was located at the confluence of the American and Sacramento rivers. As for John Sutter, he morphed into his new persona, Don Juan Sutter. To build his fort, he invited Hawaiian workers, known as Kanakas, to help with the construction. Needing even more workers, he enslaved indigenous Indians. Similar to John Marsh's belief, Sutter encouraged Americans to immigrate into California. Settling the border between the United States and Mexico became contentious. On April 25, 1846, President Polk declared war. A peace treaty was finally signed on February 2, 1848. Mexico ceded a vast area to the United States. Almost simultaneously, on January 24, 1848, gold was discovered at Sutter's lumber mill. Sutter wanted to keep the discovery secret, but the news of gold exploded around the world. Gold seekers came to California by sea, foot, or wagon train. The 49ers overran Sutter's ranchero. Squatters destroyed Sutter's infrastructure. Like many rancheros, the Mexican land grants were poorly documented. Sutter's land was declared public property and open for sale. Now bankrupt, Sutter left California for Pennsylvania. California's population was growing so fast that a constitutional convention was gavelled to order in Monterey on September 1, 1849. Statehood quickly followed. California was born without a capital, judicial system, nor secure jails. Road construction was left to local communities or to entrepreneurs who built toll roads. Trails and roads over the Sierra Nevada served our indigenous people, fur trappers, miners, businessmen, and farmers. There was one federal agency most interested in developing roads across the Sierra Nevada, the United States Postal Service. In either direction, for 3 cents, you could send a letter across the United States. How the letter arrived in California is the subject of our next chapter. Receiving mail came by ship, taking from 35 to 60 days. A faster mail service was needed. The first effort was a stagecoach link between San Antonio, Texas and San Diego. It began operation in 1857. It was nicknamed the Jackass Mail Line. The name was derived from the fact that at times the passengers had to leave their coach and switch to riding jackasses. The line ended in 1861. The Butterfield Overland Mail stagecoaches began operation in 1858. The stagecoaches traveled night and day, 24 hours a day. They made the run from St. Louis, Missouri to San Francisco in just 25 days. The Butterfield stages avoided the Sierra Nevada's Grand Peaks by looping south, then heading north to San Francisco. The California Overland and Pikes Peak Express Company had a solution for bringing the mail faster to and from California. Their plan would use a relay of horsemen and a direct route over the Sierra. While the company would finance the adventure, the United States Postal Service would declare the service a contract mail route. So why did the Pony Express fail? First, it was too expensive, but the main reason was technology. In 1863, the State Telegraph Station opened in Sacramento. Telegraph messages were cheaper and faster. Instantly, the Pony Express was obsolete. The Pony Express route over the Sierra Nevada might seem familiar, as it is a precursor to the Lincoln Highway and U.S. Highway 50. As we will see, the route will also have political implications when choosing a route for the Transcontinental Railroad. The Pony Express route passes through Carson City, Nevada, climbs the Sierra Nevada, travels to the south of Lake Tahoe before descending to Placerville, Folsom, and finally ending in Sacramento. That on the map, Lake Tahoe had a different name. In 1844, John C. Fremont named the lake Bonpland after a French botanist. The name did not stick, as Tahoe was soon renamed Lake Bigler, named after the governor of California. Too bad for the governor, John Bigler, as he became a hated Southern sympathizer during the Civil War. In 1862, a new name was proposed, Lake Tahoe, as it was believed the indigenous people in their language referred to the lake as water in a high place. Meet Henry Comstock. He was a sheep herder and prospector. He shared a cabin with two brothers who were also prospectors. The brothers' gold mine claim proved worthless. Obstructing their search for gold was this ubiquitous bluish-gray clay. The brothers died, and Henry Comstock refiled a new claim on their gold mine. Like the brothers, Comstock also found nothing of value. Comstock would die a poor man. In July of 1859, an analysis of that blue-gray clay showed that the clay was rich in silver. Within 7 years, Virginia City, Nevada had an estimated population of 10,000 to supply food, mining equipment, and even household items. The only source was in California. The Pony Express Trail would receive a new name. It became the Wagon Toll Road that would connect Virginia City, Nevada to Placerville, California. On the California side, just 5 miles west of Placerville, was the small town of Shingle Springs. In 1856, California's first railroad, the Sacramento Valley Line, had laid 35.5 miles of rails. It connected Shingle Springs to Sacramento. The Sacramento Valley Line had aspirations of building the first transcontinental railroad. To design and build the Sacramento Valley Railroad, the railroad hired a young civil engineer and railroad enthusiast, Theodore Judah. He was quickly nicknamed Crazy Judah. On April 14, 1865, 2,600 miles to the east of Virginia City, Nevada, a meeting was being held in the Oval Office. Robert E. Lee had just surrendered his army 5 days earlier. The meeting was between Lincoln and the Speaker of the House, Schuyler Colfax. Lincoln wanted Colfax to undertake an important fact-finding mission. Lincoln explained, "Travel by land to the Pacific Ocean, and on your travels thank the miners for their hard work and check on the progress on the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. The gold and silver helped the North finance the Northern Army." Both Lincoln and Colfax were strident supporters of the railroad industry and of the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. At the height of the Civil War on July 1, 1862, Lincoln had signed the Pacific Railway Act. The act laid out a plan on how to finance the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. At the close of the meeting, Lincoln invited Colfax to join him at Ford's Theater. Colfax declined as he had other important businesses to attend to. Colfax was a great admirer of Lincoln, and he believed he should fulfill Lincoln's wishes. 2 months after Lincoln's death, he was ready to embark. He invited 3 men to accompany him. Correspondent Samuel Bowles. Bowles would pen a book on their adventure. William Boss, Lieutenant Governor of Illinois, and Albert Richardson, a well-known journalist. Their adventure would begin in May of 1865. The first leg would be by train to Atchison, Kansas, then by stagecoach with stops in Denver, Salt Lake City, and on June 26, 1865, they arrived in Virginia City. Their next destination would be Sacramento, California. They once again climbed into a stagecoach for their ride over the Sierra Nevada mountains using the toll wagon road. In his book, Bowles describes their ascent over the Sierra Nevada and the descent into Placerville. His description of the journey explains why Judah abandoned the wagon toll road and began his search for another route over the Sierra for his transcontinental railroad. From Lake Tahoe to Placerville, the first considerable town in California, is 75 miles of well-graded road up to the mountain summits and down on the western side, and the drive over it made in less than 7 hours, even surpassed any that has gone before in rapidity and brilliancy of execution. With 6 horses, fresh and fast, we swept up the hill at a trot and rolled down again at their sharpest gallop, turning abrupt corners without a pull-up, twisting along and by the loaded teams of freight toiling over into Nevada and running along the edge of high precipices, all as deftly as the skater flies or the steam car's runs, though for many a moment we held our fainting breath at what seemed great risk or daredevil performances. The road is excellent and hard and macadamized, constructed by private enterprise and imposing heavy tolls. In Placerville, the men took a short stagecoach ride to Shingle Springs, where they boarded a Sacramento Valley Railroad car for Sacramento. Why did Judah reject the wagon toll road as his pathway over the Sierra Mountains? Unlike Bowles, who found the twists and turns exhilarating, an 1860 steam train could only accommodate a grade of between 2 and 4%. For early steam trains, tight switchbacks and steep inclines and steep descents were no-nos. Rejecting the wagon toll road, Judah began a new search. Starting in Sacramento, Judah began mapping a new, more northern route over the Sierra Nevada mountains. In Dutch Flat, he spoke with a local map maker. He became convinced that he had found a path that would permit a wood-burning steam engine the ability to reach the summit. With his new plans, Judah turned to San Francisco looking for investors. They turned him down. Crazy Judah. Back in Sacramento, 4 local businessmen signed Judah's California state documents establishing the Central Pacific Railroad. Meet Huntington, Stanford, Hopkins, and Crocker. The Big Four. Stanford would become the president of the new Central Pacific Railroad. With the Speaker of the House, along with 2 reporters, and the Lieutenant Governor of Illinois in town, Leland Stanford needed to make the day special for his guests. Stanford arranged for a very early morning 49-mile train ride from Sacramento to Illinois town, which was then the end of the line. The railroad had plans to subdivide the land just east of Illinois town, creating a new town. The new town, Stanford announced, As a surprise, the town will be called Colfax. The previous year, Charles Crocker announced the opening of a new toll road, the Dutch Flat Toll Road. The new toll road would take freight and passengers from Dutch Flat to the summit. The purpose for its construction was to pull business away from the Southern Wagon Toll Road and its competition, the Sacramento Valley Railroad. Germany, 1885. German engineer Carl Benz received a patent for the first practical internal combustion car. The fuel was gasoline. 8 years later, 1893, Charles and Frank Duryea exhibited the first American car with an internal combustion engine. In 1908, Henry Ford introduced his revolutionary Model T, an affordable car for the masses. Ford pioneered the moving production line as well as using standardized parts. A Tin Lizzie could cost as little as $260. His innovation was quickly followed by other car manufacturers. Congratulations! Who could resist being the first person in your neighborhood to purchase a horseless carriage? There was just one big problem to car ownership. While there were thousands of miles of rural highways, in 1914 there were only 1,595 miles of stone surface roads in all of the United States. If you wanted to travel long distances, you took the train. Carl G. Fisher had other ideas. In fact, he had many ideas. Fisher's life story is best summarized by one phrase. He was the P.T. Barnum of the auto industry. In 1898, he opened a bicycle store. In just 2 years, he switched to selling automobiles. His Indianapolis dealership sold 11 different brands. To promote sales, there was no publicity stunt that Fisher would refuse to take part in. To increase sales, cars had to be safer. Without headlights, it was dangerous to drive cars at night. In 1904, he co-founded Prestolite. The Prestolite was one of the first successful front headlights for cars. The car light was created by igniting compressed acetylene gas. The gas canister was secured on the car's running board. In 1917, he sold his business to Union Carbide. Now a millionaire, Fisher did not retire. He believed American cars were not as well made as European cars. American car manufacturers needed a place to test, drive, and improve their cars. In 1909, he and other investors opened the Indianapolis Speedway. Most important, automobile owners needed paved concrete roads to travel on. In 1913, he proposed and helped initiate a radical idea: build a concrete paved transcontinental highway from New York City to San Francisco. to sell his grandiose idea, he would call the highway the Lincoln Highway, named in honor of President Lincoln, who had created the first transcontinental railroad. The Lincoln Highway followed two routes over the Sierra Nevada. One road followed the northern loop around Lake Tahoe. It would become Highway 40. The second Lincoln Highway looped Lake Tahoe to the south. It would become Highway 50. After World War II, there was a need to create a super freeway system connecting all 48 contiguous states. Over the Sierra, Highway 40 was retired, becoming Interstate 80. Whether you are heading up to Lake Tahoe on Interstate 80 or waiting for a lumbering freight train to begin its climb to Truckee, you might tip your hat to Theodore Judah. He was not crazy. With your background from this video, I feel reel number 2 will become more meaningful. We will become geologists and anthropologists. Okay, tourists. Visit us on Facebook, the Dry Creek Conservancy. Learn more about our Central California watershed, as well as ways you can help. Click on my YouTube website, www.youtube.com/@MichaelStark1. You will find my collection of videos on the history of Northern California, as well as videos on our watershed, along with unique places to visit.